Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a championship boxing match, right? You've got the grand arena, the bright lights, the roaring
Yeah,
crowd.
absolutely. The whole spectacle.
Yeah, but for the first time in literally decades, the long-reigning heavyweights have suddenly just vacated the ring. Today is Thursday at the Masters, and for the first time since 1994, which is, more than 30 years, there is no Tiger Woods and no Phil Mickelson in the field.
It's pretty wild to even say out loud.
It really is. Tiger is stepping away for treatment following that recent incident, and Phil is taking an extended health break. So as we get into this deep dive of the 90th Masters tournament at Augusta National, we're looking at a massive, echoing power vacuum.
Yeah, vacuum is the perfect word for it.
Right. So looking at it from your perspective, how does the sudden absence of those two absolute titans physically and maybe more importantly, psychologically alter the locker room vibe for the rest of the field this morning?
Well, the entire ecosystem of the tournament is completely inverted. For the better part of 3 decades, Tiger and Phil operated as this massive invisible shield for the rest of the field.
A shield? How so?
Well, wherever they went, the cameras followed, the crowds surged, and the media glare was entirely absorbed by their orbit.
Right, the circus was always around them.
Exactly. If you were a top 10 player in the world, you could quietly go about your business because the chaos was always a few holes behind you or, in the interview room with Tiger. Now, that shield has vanished.
So there's nowhere to hide.
None. The pressure has amplified exponentially for this new generation. Every camera, every single expectation is now squarely on their shoulders, and there is no protective shadow to hide in anymore.
Man, that structural shift in pressure explains so much about the contrast we saw yesterday. Because before we get into the brutal reality of Thursday's opening round, we really have to look at how these players handled Wednesday's traditions.
Oh, for sure. Wednesday is always revealing.
Right, those moments give us a real blueprint for their current mental states. The par 3 contest was just a spectacle. Aaron Rai took the victory with a bogey-free 21, so 6 under par.
Which is incredible shooting out there.
It really is, and we saw 4 holes in one from Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Thomas, Wyndham Clark, and Keegan Bradley, who, by the way, aced it in consecutive years.
Yeah, which absolutely defies statistical probability. The odds of that are astronomical.
Seriously. But I have to ask you about the elephant in the room here. The famous par 3 curse.
Yeah.
No one in the history of this tournament has ever won the par 3 contest and the green jacket in the same week. Is Aaron Rai actively sweating that this morning?
The curse is a great media narrative, but from a purely psychological standpoint, the par 3 contest actually serves a vital neurobiological purpose.
Wait, neurobiological, how do you mean?
Well, the mental gauntlet of the first round of the Masters is just suffocating. When players step onto the grounds, their cortisol levels, the stress hormone, they just skyrocket.
And high cortisol degrades fine motor skills, right?
Exactly, which is the kiss of death for a golf swing. You need those fine motor skills. So by going out there on Wednesday, having your kids caddy in those little white jumpsuits, laughing off bad shots.
Like watching Tommy Fleetwood's son Frankie try to muscle a ball over the water?
Yeah, that was adorable. But things like that, the players are actively resetting their nervous systems. They are lowering their heart rates. It's a physiological pressure release valve before the tournament turns into a total war.
So they are essentially biohacking their own stress levels. That makes complete sense.
They absolutely are.
And you could see a similar release of pressure at the Champions Dinner on Tuesday night. Defending champion Rory McIlroy set the menu: goat cheese dates, elk sliders with caramelized onion jam, and sticky toffee pudding.
A fantastic menu, by the way.
Oh, incredible. But having won the 2025 Masters to finally complete his career Grand Slam, you could visibly see a decade of historical weight just lifted off him.
Yeah, he looked like a different person.
He really did. He is playing loose and free with this profound sense of relief. But, that relief is going to be tested immediately today because Augusta's defenses are officially up and the architecture of the course itself has practically been weaponized.
Well, they don't mess around once Thursday hits.
Exactly. Let's look at the brand new 3-story player services building they just unveiled, but maybe more importantly, the actual changes on the course. The 17th hole, Nandina, has been lengthened by 10 yards, bringing the total to 450 yards.
Right.
Now, to the average listener, 10 yards sounds pretty negligible. Why is that specific distance so catastrophic?
Because it fundamentally alters the physics of the approach shot. 10 extra yards forces a player to drop from, say, an 8-iron down to a 6-iron.
And a 6-iron changes everything about the trajectory.
Yes, exactly. When you hit a 6-iron, the launch angle is lower, which means the descent angle of the golf ball as it comes out of the sky is much shallower. Augusta's greens are notoriously firm.
Like concrete.
Basically, yeah. So a ball lands with a shallow descent angle, it doesn't stop. Its forward momentum carries it straight off the back of the green. That 10-yard addition is specifically designed to force players into hitting lower lofted clubs into a green that demands a high, soft landing.
Wow. Which brings us directly to the terrifying reality of Augusta's greens. We have this great data from Golf Monthly showing how violently the difficulty swings based entirely on where the grounds crew puts a 4.5-inch hole.
It's wild to see it mapped out like that.
It is. Let's look at hole 3, Flowering Peach. Moving the flag just 5 yards can turn a birdie opportunity into a guaranteed bogey. If the pin is front right, it's pretty accessible. But if they tuck it front left, it plays a full half shot harder.
Yeah, it becomes a nightmare.
Right. Augusta's greens aren't just fast, they act like a roulette wheel. If you don't land your approach shot on the exact right mathematical tier, gravity just pulls the ball 40 feet away from the hole. How do these players mentally map targets when the margins are that razor thin?
Well, they map them by abandoning the pin altogether.
Really? Just ignoring the flag?
Yeah, that is the biggest trap casual viewers fall into, thinking the flagstick is the actual target. It rarely is. At Augusta, players are aiming for a specific, completely invisible dinner plate on a slope, maybe 20 yards away from the pin.
Just trusting the ground to do the work.
Exactly. They're relying entirely on biomechanics and spin control to let the ball feed down to the hole.
Let's break down the biomechanics of that for the listener, because when you say spin control on a slope, what is physically happening between the club and the ball?
So it's all about the physics of impact. Take hole 16, Redbud. The green slopes severely from right to left. If the pin is back left, you want to land the ball in the right center of the green.
Right.
Now, to get the ball to grip that slope and slowly feed down to the hole, players have to really shallow out their swing path and strike down on the back of the ball with a slightly open club face.
Which generates a ton of backspin, right?
Right, exactly. We're talking over 9,000 revolutions per minute of backspin. If they come in too steep, the ball launches too high, loses spin, and literally rockets off the green. It requires absolute microscopic control of the club face at impact.
And if that face control fails on, say, hole 11, White Dogwood, the consequences are immediate. That is consistently the hardest hole on the course.
Oh, absolutely. It's ruthless.
Water is heavily in play on the left, which forces a strategic bailout to the right, but that leaves this terrifying downhill chip back toward the water. It's a lose-lose scenario if you miss your spot by a yard. Any deceleration, any flinch in the hands, and the ball is either wet or you're fighting for a bogey from the right side runoff.
And that razor-thin margin for error is exactly why player groupings matter so much early in the tournament. Early momentum is contagious, but so is early panic.
Oh, for sure. Panic spreads fast.
It really does.
Yeah.
So in the morning at 10:31 a.m. Eastern, we have Rory McIlroy, Cameron Young, and the amateur Mason Howell. Rory gets to ride that crisp morning air and the traditional champions pairing.
Nice and relaxed.
Yeah, but the afternoon groups face a much more intense dynamic. At 1:08 p.m., we have the 2023 champ Jon Rahm, Ludwig Ahlberg, and Chris Gotterup. Gotterup is a debutant, trying to do something nobody has done since Fuzzy Zoeller in 1979 win this tournament on his first try.
I look at that group and I see 3 entirely different methods of attacking a golf course. Rahm uses brute force and a short, compact swing. Ahlberg is a surgical ball striker with a massive flowing arc who finished runner-up as a rookie here.
He's a machine.
He really is. And Gotterup has immense raw talent but zero historical scar tissue at Augusta. But let's push past the physical styles for a second. The grouping that requires our full attention today tees off at 1:44 p.m.
Yes, the big one.
World number 1, Scottie Scheffler, Bob McIntyre, and Gary Woodland. Now, the Gary Woodland story just transcends golf. He is playing through severe anxiety and PTSD following brain surgery last year.
It's an incredibly powerful story.
It is. He has openly talked about the intense fear he battles on the course, utilizing extra security and having his caddy literally point out hazards and physical landmarks just to help him stay visually grounded in reality. I have to ask, how does a professional athlete physically execute a golf swing, which requires ultimate precision through that level of adrenaline and neurological panic?
It is a stunning display of utilizing the subconscious mind. You know, when the conscious mind, specifically the prefrontal cortex, is overwhelmed by trauma or anxiety or just pure adrenaline, It essentially shuts down an athlete's ability to focus.
Right. You get the yips or you just freeze up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Elite athletes bypass this by relying entirely on their basal ganglia, which is the part of the brain responsible for habit formation and muscle memory.
Interesting.
Yeah, Gary Woodland has swung a golf club millions of times in his life. His goal out there isn't to think about the mechanics of the swing. His goal is to simply trigger the start of his physical routine and let his autonomous nervous system take over. The body literally executes the physics of the swing, while the conscious mind is fighting for survival.
But the sheer bravery to voluntarily put himself in that incredibly stressful, highly public environment, knowing his brain is working against him, is just staggering.
And beyond impressive.
And that internal battle is going to be taking place while the players fight an entirely different external battle today. The weather. Because the morning groups and the afternoon groups are going to play two completely different golf courses today.
The forecast is looking pretty intense.
It really is.
Yeah.
Thursday brings a high of 73 degrees, a low of 49, 0 rain. It will look beautiful on television for you at home, but the critical factor is the wind. We're looking at sustained winds of 9 miles per hour in the morning, climbing to sustained gusts ranging from 16 to 30 miles per hour as the afternoon progresses.
And that completely changes the defense of the course.
Right. Because there is 0 rain, that legendary Augusta grounds crew is going to let the course bake.
Oh, they will utilize the sub-air system, which completely changes the nature of the turf.
Let's clarify what that is, because a lot of people picture giant fans blowing across the grass. The sub-air system is an underground infrastructure of vacuums, literally sucking moisture down through the soil matrix, pulling water away from the roots to make the greens as hard as concrete.
It's an incredible piece of engineering.
It really is. So you combine concrete greens with 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts. How does that specifically dictate the style of golf we will see today?
Well, it completely neutralizes the bomb and gouge style of play.
Bomb and gouge, right.
Yeah, for those unfamiliar, bomb and gouge is when a player hits the ball as far as possible off the tee, completely ignoring whether they land in the fairway or the rough, knowing they are strong enough to muscle a high-lofted wedge out of the thick grass.
Just overpowering the hole.
Exactly. But high-lofted wedges generate massive amounts of backspin. When you hit a high-spin iron into a firm green with a 30-mile-per-hour gust at your back, the Magnus effect takes over.
Okay, the Magnus effect, let's get into that.
Yeah, the wing catches that spinning ball, prevents it from dropping, and rockets it straight over the back of the putting surface into the pine straw. So this specific weather setup severely punishes raw power. It heavily rewards players with elite trajectory control.
The guys who can hit those low driving stingers.
Right, the guys who can hit a low driving iron that pierces the wind, lands flat, and stops through sheer friction rather than spin.
Which perfectly sets up our look at the players built to survive this exact equation. Let's start with Scottie Scheffler. The media narratives around him are totally fractured right now.
They really are all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, he is the dominant betting favorite, but Sports Illustrated recently suggested his game is in a quote-unquote rut. Plus, he's navigating life as a brand new dad to his son, Remy.
See, Scheffler's rut is a statistical anomaly because his baseline for ball striking is just so incredibly high. Even when his putting is slightly off, his ability to control the descent angle of his irons is unparalleled.
And what about the new father narrative?
Honestly, regarding the new baby, sometimes that perspective actually frees a player up. The neurological stakes are lowered. A bogey doesn't feel like a life or death scenario when you have a newborn waiting for you in the rental house.
That's a very fair point. Perspective changes everything. Now, contrast that with Collin Morikawa. He has a lingering back injury that forced him to withdraw from the Players and the Valero Texas Open.
Yeah, that's a tough situation.
He openly admits his body isn't cooperating, turning his preparation into a massive mental battle because he simply can't hit certain shots right now. Why is a restricted shot shape a death sentence at Augusta?
Because Augusta demands you hit every shape in the bag. Take hole 13, Azalea. It's a par 5 that doglegs sharply to the left. To hit the fairway and have a chance to reach the green in 2, a right-handed player physically must hit a sweeping draw, curving the ball right to left.
Which is hard enough even when you're healthy.
Exactly. And hitting a draw requires deep spinal rotation to shallow the club from the inside. If Morikawa's back injury prevents that specific rotation, he is forced to hit a straight shot or a fade, which will run straight through the fairway into the pine straw. He is playing with a massive geometric handicap.
Wow, a geometric handicap. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a player trying to fundamentally change his geometry, though. Bryson DeChambeau. He has undergone a total mental shift.
He really has matured out there.
Yeah, we all remember his par 67 bravado from a few years ago where he tried to just overpower the course with raw speed, and it failed spectacularly. Now he's talking about having an obedience to Augusta. He's focusing on strategy, location, and respect for the design.
It's a complete 180.
It is. But let me push back on this narrative of obedience for a second. Mathematically, doesn't his sheer distance advantage negate the need for obedience? If he's hitting a pitching wedge from the rough while everyone else is hitting a 5-iron from the fairway, hasn't he effectively bypassed the course's primary defense?
I see what you're saying, but that assumes he has a clear line of sight to the green. Augusta's primary defense isn't distance, it's angles. The towering Georgia pines dictate your approach.
Right, you can't just hit through a tree.
Exactly. You can hit a 350-yard drive, but if you were 2 yards into the left rough on hole 11, you were completely blocked out by trees. You can't hit a pitching wedge straight through a solid pine trunk.
Fair point.
That is why Bryson's realization of obedience is so critical. Augusta baits you into being aggressive off the tee, only to punish you on the approach. If Bryson can actually maintain the discipline to hit a 3-wood to the correct side of the fairway instead of indiscriminately bombing a driver, it will mark a massive evolution in his course management.
I am fascinated to see if he can actually maintain that discipline when he's, 2 over par and the wind is howling. Now, let's look further down the board at the dark horses who could exploit this power vacuum today.
Let's hear it.
So, Jacob Bridgman at plus 8,600. For anyone listening who isn't a total stats nerd, true strokes gained basically measures a player's performance against the rest of the field that specific day, isolating their actual skill from how easy or hard the course is playing.
It's the most reliable metric we have.
Right. And Bridgman is third in the entire field in true strokes gained over the past 3 months, trailing only Jon Rahm and Scottie Scheffler. He already won the Genesis Invitational this year. Then you have Nikolai Hudgegard at plus 8,500, who contended here in 2024 and is in elite approach play form.
Both great picks.
And for the deep sleepers, Ryan Fox at plus 27,500. He has the raw power and a deft short game, but his irons have to hold up against the wind. What are your thoughts on those guys?
Well, Hudgegard is incredibly intriguing because he now possesses real course knowledge after being in the top 6 going into Sunday in 2024. But Bridgman's metrics are undeniable. When you are gaining true strokes on the field at a rate only bettered by Scheffler and Rahm, your ball striking is already functioning at a major championship level. He has the trajectory control required for these firm conditions.
All right, well, it's time to lay our cards on the table. Based on the lengthened course setup, the concrete greens, the 30-mile-per-hour gusts, and the psychology of a field operating without the Tiger and Phil shield, who wins the 2026 Masters?
I have to select Scottie Scheffler.
Even with a rut narrative?
Yeah, despite the narrative about a rut, you have to look objectively at the physics of the weather forecast. Firm, fast greens combined with heavy wind gusts demand the best trajectory control in the world. Scheffler's ability to fight the ball down through the wind, combined with his unmatched approach play metrics, make him uniquely equipped to solve the specific equation Augusta is presenting this week. His baseline is simply too high for the rest of the field to overcome in these conditions.
The logic is sound, I can't deny that. But I am going entirely off the board. I am picking a dark horse to shock the world. Jacob Bridgman.
Wow, okay.
Hear me out. In a year defined by this massive power vacuum, the door is wide open for a completely new narrative. I believe this is the year the Fuzzy Zoeller 1979 debutante curse is finally broken. Bridgman's elite strokes gained metrics over the last 3 months prove his swing holds up under pressure. With the traditional heavyweights out of the ring, he sneaks in, plays disciplined golf, and takes the green jacket.
I mean, a debutante winning on a firm, windy Augusta would be historic. It'll require a level of iron discipline we rarely see from first-timers.
Which brings us to our viewing guide for today. If you are tuning into the first round, here's what you need to pay close attention to. First, watch how the ball reacts on the greens by Thursday afternoon.
That's the real test.
Yeah, if those approach shots from the fairway are hitting the putting surfaces and violently bouncing forward through the greens into the rough, you will know the sub-air system and the wind have won, and the scoring is going to plummet.
Also, keep a close eye on the newly lengthened 17th hole early in the broadcast. That extra 10 yards is going to be highly visible. In 30-mile-per-hour gusts, players are going to be forced into hitting long irons into a green they historically attacked with short irons.
which is going to look awkward for some of them.
Very. You will see some very uncomfortable defensive swings on that tee box. It will be an early indicator of who is trusting their swing and who is fighting it.
And as a final reminder for the KPIs, the key performance indicators today is absolutely not about making birdies. Forget the highlight reel. The players who sit atop the leaderboard tonight will be the ones who mastered three-putt avoidance and iron play discipline. Par is a phenomenal score this afternoon.
Absolutely. Survival is the name of the game today.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the first round, I want to leave you with a philosophical question to mull over as you watch the broadcast today. We started by talking about the empty boxing ring, the absence of Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson.
Right, the end of an era.
That era was defined by a stoic gladiator mentality. It was about projecting invincibility. But look at who's stepping into the ring today.
Yeah.
We have top players openly discussing debilitating mental health struggles and PTSD. We have champions admitting their bodies are failing them and they have to adapt. We have the biggest hitters in the sport openly preaching the need for obedience to the golf course rather than trying to brutally overpower it.
It's a massive cultural shift.
It really is. So the question is, are we witnessing the death of the golf gladiator and the birth of a more vulnerable, highly calculated, and perhaps much more relatable generation of champions? It's something to think about as you watch them walk those fairways today.
It's going to be an unforgettable week.
Without a doubt. If you enjoyed this content, we would really appreciate your support by subscribing to our podcast and following our channel. It helps us continue producing daily golf content, covering tournaments like this, and keeping you informed with high-quality insights every morning.